I've heard that atheist Quakers exist. I don't think I've found any yet. I would say, though, I'd be interesting to talk to some atheists. Let's forget the Quakers. I haven't found them, but I do remember asking one friend, an acquaintance, who was a self-proclaimed atheist, well, tell me about God. And she said, well, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. I said, yeah, I know that. That's what an atheist is. But what do you know about God? And she was stumped. So I said, okay, tell me about the Easter Bunny. Oh, all kinds of stuff about the Easter Bunny. And do you believe with the Easter Bunny? No, I don't believe in the Easter. But you know about it. So even if you don't believe in God, what do you know of God? Well, and that elicited, a long line of things, mainly negative things. I don't believe God is this. I don't believe God is that. And curiously, when she was, finished, we probably agreed on almost everything. I mean, her definitions of what God is not were pretty much exactly what my definitions of what God is not. So God's something else. Atheist Quakers? Still looking.
First of all, they exist. I am one, I think, although I'm not really sure what an atheist is sometimes. But because atheism is kind of like saying you know the answer. But in general, I approach the discussion of atheism as being people like Stephen Hawking, Carl Sagan, who are two of my idols. And so it's not so much whether you believe in God as whether or not what you think about how the universe started, to me, and your feeling about working with and being with other people. So,
yes, they exist. And the ones I can think of wouldn't have it any other way. No, but yes, it's just Quakerism is flexible in its dogma, and people are seeking. And if that is where they are on their path and they fit well in their attitudes towards other friends, of course, not on the basis of being an atheist would they be a poor fit for a friend being at a friend's meeting.
I would say yes, because in the Philadelphia Monthly meeting, I did meet many atheists and agnostics, and what we like to call them is seekers, which means that they want something, they need something, and they're searching for something, and this is a good place to come and find it.
now this is kind of like a test. Worship, I guess, is when we sit in silence. But to me, the meeting is almost the whole thing, including our discussions that we have beforehand, although because we are together, I mean, that's the meeting. But worship is when we are silent and start to look within.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that. I think worship is a, here's where I go down on my own definitions and fall back on that. I think worship to me is a holdover from previous generations, maybe previous century. And I don't mean to diminish what people do in our meeting for worship. People certainly pray, and some people will stand and sing. So in some ways, it may sound like a worship service at a different flavor of church. It's not a question I think about too much, though. It's meeting for worship, but that's a holdover from the past, like first day school. You know, the Quakers called everything days of the week were first day, second day, etc. But the only day we remember now is first day, and we remember meeting for worship. But I don't want you or anybody to get the idea that nobody's worshiping just because Jack isn't.
Well, I think meeting is worship. It's where we come together in a meeting to do silent worship, which is kind of like a meditation. We open ourselves to the light within and we look for answers from that light, the inward guidance from that. So we meet to do that.
What a great question. Okay. So meeting, I think, is really it's more broadly used in different gatherings with different purposes. We have meeting for business. We have meeting for worship, and it's refers to the more communal gathering aspect of our community in a Quakerly way. Worship. I admit, there's just sometimes worship as is. I mean, I know what it means in context here, but I absolutely understand how it's got so many other connotations. It could seem more confusing and something a lot more elaborate get drawn up in somebody else's mind who didn't have the connotation of Quaker worship already. I think a word that would be good to add for somebody is waiting worship. To make it clear that we are waiting in meeting for worship, to be moved by the Spirit. And we're in a celebratory way, in a very quiet way. It's worship of the moment, to connect and sit quietly with other friends who are also listening and waiting for opportunity to hear what they need to hear, what God is whispering.
Well, as a Quaker, yeah, I think you can wear anything you want. That isn't unlawful. I come from the miniskirt era. I come from the hippie era. So, I remember all kinds of dress. And doesn't really matter what religion you are. What you do outside the meeting is pretty much you. I mean, so just don't be obscene. That's all.
Clean clothes are preferred. I have I know some friends who would stick with what was thought of traditional Quaker plain dress, but I don't see any reason for that. I didn't see any reason for it in the 20th century, and not in the 21st either, or plain speech. I think it's a distraction to much more important items, even more important differences. If we want to talk about differences between friends and other religious bodies, I think there's more important ways of doing it than how we dress.
We're really allowed to wear whatever we want to wear, but needless to say, people don't come in generally bedazzled in cocktail dresses or fancy suits, expensive suits. And if someone were a Quaker, I don't think they would want to spend $1,000 on a luxury brand of suit or a luxury dress. They would probably rather put the money into a charitable fund to help others who need something, and they would rather wear something simple and plain. We don't like to be too boastful or show-offy, or provocative for that matter, but for the most part, I think both of the meetings that I attended were very open about what people wore to meeting. But no one came to meeting in anything objectionable anyway.
Okay. So anyone who knows me may secretly wonder if I have any other clothes. I am a black t-shirt and jeans or plain bottom kind of gal. And I'll tell you all a secret. It's like Pee Wee Herman's closet. I got all the same stuff. I have other changes, but I learned it in art school. It's more art school uniform than it is Quaker uniform, but it is simple, and I suppose that is just always kind of been my personal way. Friends are all over the board with what they wear, but we definitely are not a group that dresses up for each other. Well, maybe some people do in their way, but as like some places of worship, it would be more appropriate to have more formal dress. This is definitely not the case. Not a meeting for worship. You know, wear comfortable clothes. I tend to think if a friend came in wearing something very bright and audacious and fabulous, they'd probably get compliments, you know, for their style. It's not that it's not allowed. There's a history of very plain gray clothing. My mother sent a gray sweater for my son to wear with his Harry Potter costume for Halloween, and she says, and it's also a nice Quakerly gray, to just add, you know, that it will continue to be useful, and it is, but it doesn't have to.